I condemn everything that has been caused by the jihadists, and this is not my opinion. This is based on causal reasoning. You kidnap people and you take them to a different place. What other option does a sovereign nation have but to return its citizens? What else? There's only two options here, right? You either release the hostages or they have to come and be rescued. So the fact that Hamas has stubbornly refused to return these hostages means that Israel has no other choice.
Well, let's debate all that now with my panel, the host of Democracy-ish podcast, Wajah Ali, the Israel Special Envoy for Trade and Innovation, Fleur Hassan, the Iranian-American attorney and activist Elika Lebon, and from the Grey Zone, the journalist Aaron Mate. Well, welcome to all of you. Fleur Hassan Nahum, I just spoke there to the ambassador of Lebanon, extremely concerned about what is happening, and in particular, this breaking news from Israel's army chief that these strikes on Lebanon are in preparation for the possible entry of troops. Is it really a sensible move by Israel to consider another ground war, given what has been going on in Gaza for the past year?
Or was it a sensible move on the 8th of October to start a war from Lebanon into Israel, evacuating 100,000 Israelis who don't live anywhere near 10 kilometers from the border? Why did they start that? There's no territorial claim. What was the point of that? Maybe, and this is what the ambassador, of course, didn't mention, and I'm sure Elika will back me up on this, maybe they're all really the servants of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and they're doing their bidding for them. But what's happening at the moment is actually something very curious, and that is that the Islamic Republic of Iran is currently in a charm offensive in New York, and at the same time throwing Hizbollah under the bus for a war that it probably asked them to do in order to help their friend Yahya Sinwar. So the point is this: is Israel supposed to be attacked and not defend itself? Is Israel supposed to go for a ceasefire after its people, its women have been raped, its children have been burnt, and a war has started against them? We've been in this story since 1948, when we were attacked by all the countries around Israel. Today, that has been replaced with Islamic Republic proxies and militias. And this is where we find ourselves. Do we want war? No. We want peace. We're not in Lebanon. He's talking about UN. He's talking about resolutions. It's very simple. If he wants this all to stop, it's very, very simple. Just comply with Resolution 1701, which says very simply this: Hezbollah has to go behind north of the Litani River, and there's not supposed to be any armed terrorist south of the Litani River, and it's all over. The question is not to me. The question is, why on the 8th of October, Hezbollah decided to start throwing what is now almost 10,000 missiles into Israel? If the UK, if in Dover, France threw 10,000 missiles from Calais, Piers, what would happen? Well,
I think we would certainly robustly defend ourselves. Let me go to Wajah Ali for your response there to what Fleur Hassan Nahum was saying and what the ambassador was saying, because clearly there are very strong opinions on both sides here. There have been for the last year. What do you believe is likely to happen next, and what do you think of what is happening?
Yeah, so I think we all agree that nothing justifies the war crimes and terrorism that was done on October 7th. But to Israel, October 7th justifies committing war crimes and terrorism all around the world. Israel sounds like Dr. Strangelove. It sounds like a manic, violent creature right now that has said, this is their quote, "We want de-escalation through escalation." That's like saying no fighting in the war room. That's like saying we will bomb them in order to save them. That's like saying we will find life in death. Israel has already invaded Lebanon in 1982. 15 to 20,000 people were killed, mostly civilians. It wanted to weaken the PLO. You know what happened as a result of that? The PLO was weakened, but something called Hezbollah rose. Then Hamas rose. 2006, Israel and Lebanon had a war. Many civilians were killed. It was a stalemate. Now, almost a year into the October 7th war and the Gaza war, since then, 41,000 Palestinians have been killed, mostly children, Piers, in Gaza. More children have been killed in Gaza than in all the war zones combined in the past 2 years. Israel right now is bombing Lebanon. 27,000 people have been displaced, over 2,000 people injured, over 500 people killed, 50 children killed. To Israel right now, everyone is an enemy. Everyone is Hezbollah. Everyone is Hamas, right? Nurses are killed. Refugee camps are killed. I've been talking on your show for the past year. Each time I come on, there's a fresh new horror, right? Palestinians go to the south. You got Palestinians in refugee camps. They're bombed. Children are bombed. Journalists are bombed. Leon Panetta, who was the former CIA director, has said what Israel did in Lebanon, specifically booby trapping the phones, is an act of terrorism. That's Leon Panetta. The United Nations Commissioner on Human Rights said that same action was a violation of international law. I want to quote him. He said, "It is a war crime to commit violence intended to spread terror among civilians," end quote. So the question for me is, when will the world and when will the United States say enough? Leave it to the panel.
Well, let me ask Elika Lebon. Do you condemn that?
I condemn everything that has been caused by the jihadists, and this is not my opinion. This is based on causal reasoning. You kidnap people and you take them to a different place. What other option does a sovereign nation have but to return its citizens? What else? There's only two options here, right? You either release the hostages or they have to come and be rescued. So the fact that Hamas has stubbornly refused to return these hostages means that Israel has no other choice. And so what you're looking at here is Hamas persistently putting the Palestinian people in a position to be slaughtered in this way. And you know what else that's so much worse than that? When people keep coming up with these numbers, 41,000 people killed. Why? Why are 41,000 people killed? Okay. Why is it not that 41,000 people in Israel have been killed despite all of these attacks? Because Israel invests in protecting its citizens. What does Hamas do? Hamas starts a war and then hides in its terror tunnels, okay, and leaves its civilians, its children vulnerable above the ground to be exploded like cowards hiding in tunnels. So yes, I agree 41,000 is an awful number. First of all, we haven't separated the combatants, but we know that children have been killed, and the children have been killed because of Hamas. Everybody that is being killed is because of jihadists, and there is not one fact that you can make that doesn't start with the jihadists. And when the jihadists bury themselves wherever they are, whether they're in Lebanon, whether they're in Gaza, whether they're in Iran, whether they're in Syria, they are making the people of that nation, the people they are burying themselves amongst, vulnerable to being killed in this way. So yes, I absolutely condemn those deaths, and I absolutely blame the jihadists for that. And first of all, to go back to this claim that Hezbollah never started this war, from the 8th of October, okay, started launching, by this point, over 11,000 rockets into Israel. 96,000 people in northern Israel have been displaced. 10% of Israel's landmass has been depopulated, okay, 11 months deep. What is it exactly that you expect Israel to do? At this point, civilians are out of their homes, children are out of their schools. What do you expect Israel to do in the final instance where there is a precision strike on Hezbollah terrorists, okay? Hezbollah terrorists, the world wants to claim that this is an international war crime. Like, what should Israel do? Just bend over and keep accepting it? None of these things are acceptable to you people. Targeted strikes, unacceptable. Pages, unacceptable. What is acceptable to stop these terrorists from persistently and belligerently attacking Israel? And to make the claim, first of all, to make the claim that they are doing this on behalf of the Palestinians is absolutely outrageous. You want to say that, oh, we're fighting for the Palestinians because of the occupation in this oppressive military state. What about Hezbollah's oppressive military state? What about Hezbollah's state within a state that has undermined Lebanon's sovereignty? What about the fact that Hezbollah goes to Syria and massacres people on behalf of Assad? What about the fact that Hezbollah goes to Iran and massacres, rapes innocent Iranians? So why don't we just say that everything that Israel's doing is in behalf of the innocent Iranians, the innocent Syrians, and the innocent Lebanese? You know why you don't say that? Because it sounds absolutely ridiculous. It is a red herring. It is a red herring to claim that Hezbollah is acting on behalf of Palestinians when what they're doing is exactly what they said in their charter, which the Islamic Republic created them for, which is to create a second Islamic Republic in Lebanon and to destroy Israel. That is their goals. It is time to be honest about that.
Okay.
Didn't hear a condemnation of Israel's war crimes there.
Oh, I absolutely did. What I said was that the jihadists are to blame by the laws of causal reasoning.
All right. Let me bring in Aaron Marty. Aaron, we are nearly a year into this war in Gaza. It now looks increasingly likely there might be another phase of this war erupting, or already has erupted, in Lebanon. The question I have wrestled with since October the 7th is not whether Israel has a right to defend itself if it's attacked, but what is the proportionate response which should be tolerated of a nation that comes under that attack. And that's setting aside the history of the conflict. When you are attacked as they were on October the 7th, you obviously have to fight back hard, particularly as Hamas said, we're going to keep doing this. If Hezbollah wants to respond to what happened on October the 7th by within hours unleashing rockets at Israel and carrying on doing that for the next year, again, Israel has a right to defend itself. The question is, what is proportionate? Do you accept, first of all, Aaron, that Israel has a right, if not a duty, to its people to defend itself? And if you accept that, then what is proportionate? Who determines that?
Every state, including Israel, has the right to defend itself, but let's examine what that right entails. If we're talking about October 7th, when yes, some Hamas militants committed atrocities, they're on camera. There was a claim before, by the way, that there was rape by Hamas. There actually isn't evidence for a single case of rape, even 1 year later, and I'm happy to debate that.
I'm sorry, I've got to stop.
Hold on a second.
I have to correct you there. I have seen
my point.
You're that guy.
There has been widespread evidence of rape and sexual abuse against women on October the 7th.
There hasn't. There actually hasn't. We'll debate that some other time. We'll debate that some other time. I'm going to finish my point. There is not a single shred of evidence for it, but we'll debate some other time. Listen, we're talking about October 7th. Israel has a right on October 7th to defend its people. Let me finish my... Piers, every time I come on here, I can't talk.
Okay,
let me
look,
talk.
to be fair,
I'm talking.
Aaron,
I didn't interrupt you.
Aaron, okay.
You can talk,
no,
I
let me deal with this.
Anybody.
Aaron, look what I would say. You say every time you come on here this happens, but you just started with an unbelievably inflammatory and incorrect statement, which is that there was no sexual abuse of women on October the 7th.
There's no evidence of it.
There are multiple
we'll debate that some other time.
Of sexual abuse and rape.
No. Okay. There's not. Anyway, listen. If we're talking about October 7th, I'm going to finish my sentence.
Let him speak, please.
Okay. I didn't interrupt you. They said multiple inflammatory things. I didn't interrupt them. Thank you.
All right. Finish your point.
If we're talking about on October 7th, yes.
Let him speak, Elika, please.
Thank you. If we're talking about on October 7th, yes. Israel has the right to defend its civilians if they're being attacked, okay? But Israel is an occupying power, and it's been an occupying power for decades. Occupiers don't have the right to defend their occupation. Israel doesn't have the right to fire a single bullet into Gaza. It has obligations. Occupiers have obligations. And if Israel wanted peace and security, what it would do is join the entire world, join the International Court of Justice, which just ruled that Israel doesn't have the right to control a single inch of the West Bank or Gaza, and end the occupation and address its decades-long attacks on Palestinians and also Lebanese, because, as was previously said, Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982, killed tens of thousands of people, and that's why Hezbollah was formed. If Israel wanted genuine peace and security and it wanted to defend itself, it would stop brutalizing other people. And this claim was made before. What was Israel supposed to do in response to its people being kidnapped? That's the logic of October 7th, because there are thousands of Palestinians who have been brutalized and kidnapped in Israeli dungeons. Hamas launched October 7th to free them. The difference between Israel and Hamas is that Hamas actually has an argument, because Hamas has tried. I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you, please.
I wasn't lying.
Hamas has tried to accept you were actually. Hamas has tried to accept the global consensus of a two-state solution, a big compromise for Palestinians, accepting just 22% of their homeland in the West Bank and Gaza.
If you go and kill 1,200 people in Israel in the manner they killed them and boast about it to the world through your GoPro cameras, actually showing what you're doing to women, children, to Holocaust survivors. You kidnap over 200 people. You're killing a newborn baby, for God's sake. If you do all that and you wound nearly 7,000 more, many of them irreparably, then you are going to get a massive response. Hamas knew that, and they knew that the casualties would be thousands of their own people. Why would you do that? Why do that? So I come back to, I have problems with everybody in this story, right? I really do, because
as you should.
Yeah,
as you should. I agree with you.
But Israel, these are the issues. These are the issues These are the issues on the Hamas Hezbollah side, which really I just can't. I don't see the answer. If you're ready to destroying it, Elika,
terrorist groups. They're both
Let me bring in Elika.
Okay. So the entire arguments that are being made here are based on revisionist history. That's first things first. The even way that you frame Hezbollah as the victim, as the non-aggressor, to where you frame Israel as escalating despite Hezbollah's repeated history of aggression, okay? First of all, the way you even describe Hezbollah's inception is wrong. Let's talk about Hezbollah's inception, which was after the 1979 revolution. Let me finish. After the 1979 revolution in Iran, Hezbollah, okay, was inspired by this, and Assad visited Iran and asked Khomeini, what can we do for you? Khomeini said, give me a passage to Syria, to Lebanon, so I can export my radical ideologies over to Lebanon. They did that, and then they started killing the Shiite Muslims in the north of Lebanon while there was an invasion by Israel from the south. Why was there an invasion from the south? There was an invasion because the PLO were in southern Lebanon firing rockets into Israel after they just got expelled from Jordan because they were doing the same thing, hijacking planes, okay, landing them on revolutionary airports, blowing them up in front of international media. Then they go to southern Lebanon and they start destroying internal political dynamics in southern Lebanon. Now you have the Christian Maronites and the Muslims fighting each other in the first Lebanon civil war, okay? They destroyed Lebanon from within just because of the desire to launch its rockets from Lebanon into Israel. Then it went up to Beirut and started fighting with the Christian Maronites to assert domination in Lebanon. Why? Because they are jihadists. And then what happens in 1978, which is the first invasion of Israel into Lebanon. Why? Because the PLO did an attack on a bus in Israel that killed 38 people. Israel goes in to try and take out the PLO. And then the UN requires them to retreat, and they retreat, and then they send their UN interim forces for Lebanon, okay, to take out the PLO. The UN runs away and the PLO comes back, continues its attack, okay? The second invasion into Lebanon, because of the continued attacks, they go in once more, and because the PLO doesn't leave, they have to create this occupation, right? And then as soon as they removed the occupation in 2000 with Ehud Barak and Clinton, what happens is that Hezbollah advances to the border of Israel and starts attacking again. And then comes the UN resolution 1701 requiring not only that Hezbollah stays 10 kilometers back from the northern border, okay, but also that all of these militias in Lebanon have to disband, and there can only be a militarized Lebanese government. Israel abided. Who did not abide? Hezbollah. Then what did Hezbollah do for 18 years? For 18 years in the zone that they were not allowed to be, they started expanding their military capacities up to 200,000 munitions, and then finally, on October 8th, started attacking. And then when Israel responded with that pager attack, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Because the commanders, the leaders of Hezbollah, had a plan to attack northern Galilee and do a second October 7th, kidnap hostages with a ground invasion. Now, you tell me, what should Israel do?
Okay.
Well, escalation to escalation.
Okay, hang on. I'll go to Aaron.
It's always easier for them to blame Israel.
Let Aaron Mate respond to that. What Israel's supposed to do in that eventuality?
What Israel should do is, for the first time in its history, abandon its quest for regional domination and supremacy.